In a distant land nestled between lush green hills and crystal-clear rivers stood the ancient city of Daivan. Its towering walls and bustling markets were known throughout the region, but what set Daivan apart was its famous sculptor named Arun. Arun lived atop a quiet hill overlooking the city. Arun's statues were legendary, not just for their breathtaking detail, but for the spirit they seemed to embody. His works were revered not as mere sculptures, but as living representations of gods, heroes, and creatures of myth. People traveled from all over the kingdom to commission Arun's work. He had carved statues for emperors and kings, temples and monuments. Yet, despite his fame, Arun remained a humble man. He lived simply, teaching the art of sculpture to those who were willing to learn, not just the physical craft, but the deeper lessons of life that he believed were intertwined with the process. One day, a young man named Ravi arrived in Daivan. Ravi had heard of Arun's mastery and had long dreamt of learning from him. He carried with him the ambition of becoming a sculptor, but more than that, he craved to unlock the secret of Arun's serenity and focus, for it was said that nothing could disturb Arun's peace, not the noise of the city, not the distractions of life, not even failure. Ravi decided to visit Arun the next day. The following day, Ravi arrived at Arun's humble workshop. He found the master seated outside, chiseling away at a block of marble. Ravi then greeted Arun while bowing down and said, "Master Arun, I have traveled from a distant village to study under you. I wish to learn the art of sculpture and become a master like you." Arun looked up at the young man and looked down. He nodded gently and said, "I see the eagerness in your eyes, young one. But becoming a master is not just about carving stone, it is about carving yourself, shaping your mind as you shape the marble. Are you ready for that journey?" Ravi hesitated for a moment. He had always thought that becoming a sculptor was about skill and technique. What did Arun mean by shaping the mind? But his determination overcame his doubt, and he replied, "Yes, I am ready." Arun then stood and led Ravi to a large stone block sitting in the center of his workshop that wasn't very smooth. "Your first lesson," Arun said, "is to carve this block into a perfect shape. It may seem simple, but it will test you in ways you cannot yet see." Ravi, very excited to start learning, immediately took up the chisel and hammer and began working on the stone. At first, he was confident. He had practiced carving in his village, and he believed this task would be no different. But as the hours passed, frustration began to creep in. Every time Ravi thought he had smoothed one side, another imperfection appeared. His hands began to tremble, his grip tightened, and his strokes became clumsy. His mind was racing, first with impatience, then with self-doubt. Day after day, Ravi worked tirelessly, trying to perfect the shape. Yet no matter how hard he tried, it was always off. Sometimes the chisel slipped, leaving a jagged line. Other times the stone chipped in places where it shouldn't have. Every mistake sent a wave of anger and disappointment through him. He blamed the tools, the stone, the heat of the day, and the exhaustion in his body. At the end of the week, Arun approached Ravi, who sat defeated next to the uneven stone. "Show me what you've done," Arun said, his voice gentle yet commanding. Ravi pointed, and Arun looked at it, seeing how far it now became from its original shape. Then he asked, "What did you learn?" Ravi, though frustrated, was honest. "I learned that carving a perfect shape is harder than it looks. I tried, but there were too many distractions. I couldn't focus, and every mistake seemed to ruin my progress. I don't know how to control my thoughts or my frustration." Arun smiled as though this was the answer he had expected. "The stone is a mirror of your mind," he said. "When you carve, it is not just your hands that work, it is your mind. Each mistake you see in the stone reflects the turbulence in your thoughts. If your mind is distracted or frustrated, it will show in your work." Ravi looked at Arun, confused. "But how do I fix my mind? How do I stop the frustration and distractions?" Arun then told him to wait while he went to prepare to take him out. When Arun was out, he then took him out to a river. While there, Arun pointed and said, Look at this river. It flows continuously, no matter what obstacles stand in its path. Sometimes it is calm and gentle, other times it is wild and fierce. But the river never stops, and it never fights the rocks or trees in its way. It flows around them, finding its path. Ravi listened intently, but wasn't sure how to apply this wisdom. After a while, they left, and Ravi went home with a resolve to return to his task. The following day, he arrived at the workshop early and began to carve the stone again. And as he worked, every time a thought of frustration or doubt crept in, he remembered Arun's words. He didn't try to force the thoughts away, but instead let them flow past him. Slowly, his mind began to settle, and with it, his hands grew steadier. The days passed, and with each stroke of the chisel, Ravi found himself more and more absorbed in the work. The distractions that had once plagued him became faint ripples in the background. He wasn't perfect, but the stone gradually took shape, becoming smoother and closer to the perfect shape Arun had asked for. Weeks later, Ravi presented his finished work to Arun. The shape was not flawless, but it was a vast improvement from his earlier attempts. More importantly, Ravi had begun to understand what Arun had meant by mastering the mind. Arun examined the stone and smiled warmly. "You have done well," he said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. Mental discipline is a lifelong practice. Just as you continue to carve stone, you must continue to carve away at the distractions and doubts in your mind." Years passed, and Ravi remained by Arun's side, learning not just the craft of sculpture, but the deeper art of mental discipline. He grew physically to a much bigger young man and became known throughout the kingdom as a master sculptor in his own right. But what set his work apart was the calm and focus he brought to every piece. His mind, once wild like a storm, had become like the unbreakable stone in the river, steady, resilient, and unmoved by the currents of life. And so Ravi's name lived on in the city of Daivan, not just as a master sculptor, but as a symbol of the power of mental mastery. Thanks for watching. Kindly hit the like button, subscribe for more beautiful and inspiring stories, and drop a comment below on what you learned from the story.